if you're anything like me, then your workshop's just not big enough for multiple benches. You got the one bench and it's the center of the workshop. It's the workhorse. So it's got to be good enough for everything, for cutting up sheet goods, for cutting up rough sawn timber, assemblies, final assemblies, glue ups, clamping, work holding, sawing, you name it, it's got to do it. So in this video, I'm going to run you through some of the bench upgrades that I've already done and some that I'm about to start using, which are really exciting. Let's crack on. So as you can see, my bench top is not used, abused. I've got marks and dominoes, routers, drill holes, finish, glue, paint, all sorts. But as I said, it's my workhorse. So the first thing I want to talk about is this Kreg clamping track. This is absolutely superb. Love it to bits. This is the heavy duty clamping track, not the standard T track. I'll put a link to it down below. So this needs to be routed into the bench top, and then on the back of it, the underneath, there is a slot where you can drill bolt holes at any place you want. I think I went with 300 centers on this to make sure it was really secure. You're going to need a reasonably thick bench top to get this in, because you got to route out about 18 mil. So it's not going to fit in a standard MDF top unless you've got two bits on it. I've got a 30 mil top and it's more than secure. So this clamping track is absolutely brilliant, as I said, because it lets you use these auto adjustable hold down clamps. Automax they're called. Again, available from Kreg. I bought the track as a kit, 2 pieces, and you get one 45-inch piece and one 27-inch piece. And I think the sizes are because they made it to fit into their multi-function foldable bench top, clamping top. But I didn't want that, I just wanted the track. So I bought the 2 bits of track and 2 clamps. So to fit the clamps, you can either slide in from the end or you can slide in to the middle. And the reason I love these so much is you can clamp pretty much any thickness that you want without having to adjust the clamp. So I can go from that to that without making any adjustment whatsoever. For me, being a slightly lazy person, that is absolutely brilliant. The adjustment for the pressure it applies is here on a little knob, which I've found you do need to tweak every now and again. And also this little nut at the bottom can loosen itself. But it's not an adjustment that you need to make very often. And like I say, I just find them absolutely superb. Now the downside. So like I said, this little adjustment here, or this little knob here, needs adjusting every now and again. Not very often. This little shoe, plastic shoe at the end, tends to slip off over a period of time and you just need to push it back in again. Not a big deal. Neither one of them are a big deal and easy to deal with. So if I slacken that off, but the clamping ability for keeping a workpiece in place is pretty damn good, and I'm putting a bit of pressure on that. I can't get that out. The big downside of this clamping fixture is the max reach wherever you put your rail to. Now they make 2 different sizes of clamp that I've seen so far, This one has got max reach from center of 200mm, and this one is 130mm. So if you go with this system and you've not got dog holes, then I would have thought one rail one side of the bench, one rail the other side of the bench, to give you better coverage. But that's about the only downside I can see to it. So the next upgrade I want to tell you about are these aluminium extrusions on the front and the end of the bench. Now these are an idea that I stole from Festool's MFT table. I wanted a way to clamp at the very edge of the bench, but also to attach this board. And there's a video on that which I'll put a link to down below, extending the bench. These rails took me ages to find because I wanted to be able to utilise the Festool clamps and the micro jig clamps. So the issue with a lot of the rails that you can buy, they'll take the clamp, but the center of the clamp projects above the top of the extrusion, which means you can't clamp because you're literally clamping against the clamp itself, and it will slide to and fro. But with this one, I can get some real good clamping action on it. I can't move that. I can spin it because I've obviously got that amount to play with. But if I put two on, and I did it this way, then that's going nowhere. So that gives me full edge clamping, as well as being able to clamp on the front of the bench, which can be pretty damn handy. So I've now got the ability to clamp up the middle with a Kreg track and clamp at the very edge or the very end of the bench and on the face of each with this aluminium extrusion. Now, this was not a cheap upgrade. I can't remember the exact cost, but like I say, I'll put the links to these down below in the description so you can look it up and see what the cost is for yourself. So next up on this wondrous tour of benchtop accessories, we've got dog holes. I'm not going to show you how to make the dog holes in this video. I've already done a video on that. I'll put a link to that below. But what I want to talk about is the maintenance of. So if your bench is multi-purpose like me, then you're going to get glue pretty much down every dog hole. And it really makes getting the dogs back in, well, nigh on impossible. So you're going to need a way to clean them out and keep them clean. And I've got these two little beauties to show you. So these two both achieve very similar ends in that they will both clean out the dog hole. There's a little blade there. They'll clean it out, but they won't make it any bigger, so you'll retain the exact size that it currently is. The only difference between the two is this one will put a tiny wee bevel on the top, and this one won't. I'd like to say I bought them both purely so that I could enlighten you if you hadn't seen them before, but that would be a lie. In truth, I bought this one because I wasn't paying attention to what I put in the basket when I really wanted that one. But now we've got them both. So here's a dog hole that's currently filled with glue residue, and I cannot get that in. So if I take this one without the bevel, pop it in my drill, you see it's slightly tapered at the bottom, so it will go in. And clean out the dog hole. It's now a perfect fit again. So that means I can continue to be extremely lazy and not worry about filling my dog holes with glue, knowing that I can still use them after a really quick clean out. So that's the one without the bevel. Now you might be asking yourself, and hopefully you are, why do I want one with a bevel in the top? Aha, I'm glad you ask, says I. The lovely people at Bench Dogs make these. Now these are nothing more than little discs of steel, I think, that drop into the dog hole so that you don't get them full of crud again. Superb. But they sit just above the top of the bench, which we don't want. So that's where this one comes in. So this is the dual purpose one. Again, it cleans out the dog hole, but also puts the little bevel on the top. So that when we drop our disc in, it's just below the surface of the top of the bench. And we're not going to catch it and rip it out. So how do I get them out when I need to get them out and use the dog hole? You simply need a little magnet and pop them out. So they are superb. Bench Dogs, you can get these at. I'll put a link to them below. I think a tin full is about 20-30 quid. I think that's what I paid. But like I say, link below. So now that my holes are clean, and I can use them freely and easily again, a breath of new life for my workbench, I want to take a look at these. These are the Bow Products Expandable Clamping Dogs. I saw these on a marketing email from Woodworker's Workshop and thought they have amazing possibilities. So this is a pack of 6. 2 are in use, which I'll show you in a tick. But very clever design. A little expandable, essentially a variation on a raw plug. And that goes in the dog. You put whatever you want to hold on top of the bench. Then you pop this little knob on the top, wind it up, and it will clamp the two together. You can see the action there. Very clever. And the possibilities of use are pretty endless. So I thought I would test it out on this board, which I'm going to use to show you the next product in a tick. So I've got 2 holes in the top of the board, which will line up with my dogs. And I'm going to pop these in behind. Put the little knurled knobby on, just so it's keeping it in place. And then I can drop them into my dog holes. Do them up. And that is pretty damn solid. I've got a hell of a lot of pressure I can bring to bear on this edge, but that is superb. So usage for these, like I say, pretty endless, especially if you've got a jig that you want to hold down while you perform some operation on the top. I think you're going to see these on the channel a hell of a lot in the future. So the next product I want to show you comes from Dog. Now I'm absolutely certain I saw this on a crowdfunding website. So this is the original kit that came out. And again, what interested me was the ability to use it with the dog holes that I've currently got in the bench. In the kit I bought, I got 2 vacuum enabled dogs, show you them in a tick, 2 what I believe are replacement tops for these dogs, a number of these little foam spacers, sealers to go underneath the workpiece that you're holding, and 4 of these bigger foam sealers. So the idea with these is you pop them in from below and then screw that into the top of your dog, and it's got a little flange on it so it sits on that little bevel that we cut earlier, and then you connect your vacuum device to the bottom. So if I come back to my extended bench top here, this is just a piece of 18mm MDF, still secured with my Bow Products clamp downs. Absolutely superb, chuffed to bits with them. So I've got these dog holes chamfered so that they'll take these tops, and I'll drop that top piece in and then simply insert the other bit underneath and screw it up. So we've got a nice tight fit. There's an O-ring on the bottom piece, so it sits in there nice and snug. And I've got the second one in over there. Now if I take my vacuum pipe, I've simply got to insert it in the bottom, take one of these little foam gaskets, pop my workpiece on top and turn on my pump. And that should be secure. Oh yeah. Tighter than a witch's tight thing. That's not going anywhere. But let's say I want to clamp a bigger piece, so I can take yet another gasket onto the second one, reach back underneath, undo that bit, and in true Blue Peter fashion, I've got a Y piece set up so that I can pop that in there and that one in there, and then take a bigger workpiece. This will do just nicely. So I want to route something on the end. And that is flipping solid. From a holding pressure perspective, that is superb. So there's absolutely no doubt about the holding power from Vacuum Dogs. Superb. Gives you real flexibility to be able to just clamp a piece to the top of your workbench and not have anything on top of the workpiece that's negating you getting to the entire surface. Superb facility to have. At the bottom of the fittings themselves is this little push connector. When you push it in, the pipe goes in through a little ring in the bottom, and the more pressure there is to pull it out, the tighter it grips. And to release, push down that little ring, pull out the pipe, and you're done. So that is simplicity itself. The fittings that I was using didn't come with the set, with the kit, but these fittings are freely available online. I bought these from Amazon, and I think this little set was 15 quid. They're absolutely as cheap as chips. And this has got Y pieces, straight connectors, reducers, T pieces, and bends. In fact, the only thing it hasn't got in it are male iron fittings and valves to allow you to isolate parts of it. But there are other kits. This particular kit again was about 10-15 quid and comes with pipe, handful of fittings and some threaded adapters with the push fit connectors on the other end. So you can achieve literally anything you want to very simply. And there's an example. So if I was going to make this a permanent fixture, I could shorten these bits of pipe, or I could just bring that to the edge of my workpiece, clip them down, and I really could make it quite neat and tidy, or I could put a bend there and there. Enough flexibility to allow it to suit any installation. And I'm definitely going to play with this idea a little bit more, as I really like this idea of having this little extension piece to use on the bench if I need to. The only thing I don't like about the vacuum dog idea is you need to pre-decide which dog holes you're going to use. I think to set this up for a single job would be far too time consuming. I don't think this is flexible enough for me. In my workshop, I want the ability to just drop it on top and go. So there are another set of products available on the market which would fulfill that need perfectly. So the last thing I want to show you on this benchtop upgrade extravaganza is my chosen approach to vacuum clamping, and that's going to be these. Now, these are available commercially from loads of different manufacturers, loads of different websites, but I've chosen to 3D print my own. So it's essentially a rectangle with a groove in the top and the bottom to take a piece of gasket material and a hole at one end to take a connector. So the gasket material is very similar, if not totally identical, to draft excluder. And the stuff I'm using is 6mm in diameter. So I've drawn in Fusion a 5mm hole that's recessed down into the top and the bottom so that it's a semicircle that's cut out that this material can just be pushed into. Like that, really quick and simple. And then cut it ever so slightly long so that it squeezes together nice and tight, and that then acts as the seal down onto the bench top or to your workpiece. The gasket material is available online, really cheap. I think that was £5, 6 quid for a 5 meter length. So I do that top and bottom. Here's one I prepared earlier, and then one of those fittings that I mentioned earlier screwed into the end. All the links will be down below. So I've printed 3 different types. I've got this one with a bit of bench dog in the middle so I can locate it into one of my dogs, and I've got a hole at one end, so that's a single use. Then I've got this one exactly the same but with a hole at each end again, so it'll locate in one of the dogs. So I could use that with that one to clamp a larger piece. And then this one, again, a single use without a dog in it. So I would utilize that one in a dog, we'll say, then that one could go anywhere else on the bench. Then on the bottom of this one, where that's gone into the dog hole, there might be a bit of air loss there. So I've got this little bit of draft excluder that I'll just put across there. Just to make sure we get a seal. And we're good to go. So usage for these, connectivity wise, exactly the same as the others. Push into the connector, and this is the flat bottom one, so I can put it anywhere on the bench, put my workpiece on the top, press on with my pump, and I'm solid. And this could be considered a benefit or a downside, but the thickness of the plate or the puck keeps the workpiece off the bench. So if you've got need for a longer router bit that sits down below, like I say, could be considered a benefit. But the major benefit for me is I can pop that anywhere I want, up the end, up the side, round the back. And I'm not fixed into any one specific location. And that's it. I think you'll agree there's something there for everybody. Clamping, cleaning, hole maintenance, the works. Hope you enjoyed the vid. Thanks so much for watching. Look forward to seeing you next time. Ta-ra.